Welcome to College Football Monday, a Sons of Saturday live show. I'm your host, PB, and I've got Sam Jesse here. Sam, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing good. It's a big week of college football. We don't have to talk about the Hokies' performance this weekend because they are on a bye, but we have some fun games to look forward to as well. I got the Army Black Knights gear.
Yeah, that's nice.
Repping that. Go Army, beat Navy. And beat Notre Dame. Maybe.
maybe this weekend we'll find out. You know, it's funny, we are coming off the bye as Hokies fans here, and there was a lot of memes of us getting beat by the bye week. Did you notice that online?
I did notice that. Yeah.
The fan base is a little isn't feeling optimistic about anything, even when we're off right now. But not a heavy dose of what the Hokies are up to is normally what I say at the beginning of these shows, but we are going to have a very short VT corner later on. We're going to do a recap of everything that happened this past weekend in college football. That's what we do here on College Football Monday. It is our national show. And before we can do anything, I got to get Sam to give us a cheers.
Yeah, my cheers is to, as much as Hokie fans wanted us to lose the bye week, I don't think we actually lost the bye week. And I feel pretty good about this week. Hopefully we get some good practice updates for the Hokies this week, but looking forward to 2 night games in a row. Pete, we were talking all season about how the Hokies were not playing primetime games outside of Thursday night. Well, here you go. Back-to-back ACC Network, 8 p.m. games for the whole world to see.
Cheers.
Cheers.
The 5-5 Hokies getting 2 primetime games to finish out the year is just what did they say on Cover 3? Time slot champs.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
They joke about that with Florida State because Florida State always, they just did their presentation on how they get more ratings than everybody.
Pete, I am shocked that the team that has had 3 island games this year on ESPN somehow has the most TV viewers. Yeah. That's shocking to me.
It's funny because when we played Florida State in that kickoff game on Labor Day, that game gets brought up about like the ratings for that game and stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, yeah, you're the only game on Labor Day night. Like there's no Monday Night Football. Like, of course it's going to rate well. It doesn't matter that it's Tech or whoever else, but it is funny. Like you get good time slots, you'll get lots of viewers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So I did want to make sure people know that College Football Monday is brought to you by Jack and Coke. If I didn't say it at the top of the show, you can see the can right on our screen there. If you have any questions, hop in the chat. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let me do my little tease here, Sam. Week 12, Georgia's offense comes alive a little bit in their win. Oregon escapes in Madison. BYU goes down. First loss of the season for the Cougars. South Carolina and Mizzou and Louisville, Stanford both had wild finishes. We'll talk about both of those games and so much more. I did kind of want to start with some comments on the coaching carousel, though, Sam. It's starting to spin. We got Herman fired at FAU. Longo, the offensive coordinator for Wisconsin, was fired. Don Brown fired at UMass. Biff Poggi at Charlotte. Temple and Ball State both open up. There are now 11 openings in college football in FBS. But no P5s yet in terms of the head coach. Who do you think, will there be some in the P5 and who will be the first to go?
In season?
In the P4, I should say.
In season, like before Christmas.
Yeah, yes. That's what I mean. Like there's going to be some eventually, but I mean like.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because I think a lot of schools are in the position that Virginia Tech is kind of in where it's like something's got to change. What exactly needs to change? That's the question. Maybe not. I mean, after what Florida said with Billy Napier and how they played against LSU, we'll talk about them, but
what about
Walters? To be pretty good.
Purdue.
That's a weird one because they are so egregiously bad that I don't know. Like it's almost
they are really bad. It's like, what's the point? Yeah.
Yeah. They've already made a coordinator change. One that a lot of people aren't talking about. Luke Fickell at Wisconsin's not working. They just fired Phil Longo, their offensive coordinator.
He's going to get more time because of that.
He's going to get time because of that. But going into and I don't want to start talking about 2025 already, but like Wisconsin's a job opening to watch here.
I mean, The Longo thing never made sense to me personally. I know that's an opinion that wasn't unique to me, but they're kind of a more spread it out, throw it around team. And at Wisconsin, that just doesn't make historical sense
Yeah.
or
Yeah, it
athlete
doesn't.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one I had thought maybe could go early is Pittman at Arkansas.
Yeah, but they've been competitive.
They have been.
I mean, they have that home win against Tennessee.
They play
We're very
Texas
competitive
tough.
against Texas.
Yeah.
I
I
think
like
they're
Sam
okay.
Pittman. They're just like, I think there's a thought that they should be one of these better SEC teams, and they've just consistently not been.
I mean, they got the Walmart logo on the 25-yard line, and it's working for basketball.
Yeah.
It's working for basketball.
So here's a question. Of the 11 openings, I'm not going to give you an option of any of them because some of them I know would be no's, but I'll give you 3 options, okay? If you could take them, you're the head coach.
Okay.
ECU, Fresno, or FAU?
I would say, okay, not FAU.
Okay.
Too much. I mean, no one cares about football in Boca Raton.
Florida talent, though.
Yeah. ECU is tempting because of the current playoff format. However, Fresno State will be in a big boy conference next year. They will be in the Pac-12, in the Pac-8.
6?
I think they'll get to 8.
Do you think they're going to get to 8? Okay.
Yeah, I mean that talk about fertile recruiting ground. I mean, my gosh, and that is a program too that has been, their fans have supported their football team for decades now.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one, and they've had a lot of talent for there. But I think if I had to pick one, it would be East Carolina, just because you know that they have the fan support, and with the current playoff format, I think you could find your way to like an 11-1 season every 3-4 years at ECU.
Yeah, my pick would have been ECU as well. I just think they have good fan support, good history, a lot of local talent. You could even go farther south to get more talent. Of course, I say all that not liking ECU at all, but I just feel like it's just in California. You don't have the feverish. I know they have good fan support at Fresno, so maybe I just don't know. But I just feel like ECU, they can be crazy fans when they're good.
Yes. Yeah. And it's also one of those schools that I think is successful in other sports. Like they're a very, very good baseball program and they show out for that. Like they would show out for good football. Funny enough, I was a Fresno State backer this summer in the conference realignment discussion. A lot of San Diego State fans got really mad at me. And they were like, oh, those farm boys are never going to be in the same conference with us and yada, yada, yada. And here they are. So,
yeah. Interesting. All right. Let's go to enough about coaches. Let's go to Georgia, finishing strong against Tennessee. They win 31-17. And it took just a little bit for them to kind of do what Vegas kind of indicated with the lines we were talking about earlier in the week. But Nico did play.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know what the line closed at. I assume it came back down under 10, but Georgia offense came to play. 450 yards of offense. Georgia won the second half 14-0, despite it being tied 17-all at the half. Carson Beck was pretty awesome in this game. 379 total yards, 3 touchdowns, and 98 QBR. Spread the ball around, used his tight ends. Delp had 2 touchdowns. That was one of their tight ends they used. Sampson was obviously solid for UT, but Nico was, what we've seen out of Nico this year.
Yeah, and it was kind of, in a way, it was exactly what we thought would maybe happen in this game. I thought Tennessee came out, looked really, really good, and Nico looked really good. They came out today, they got up to a 10-0 lead. They looked confident. Their defense looked good, and it was like a switch flipped. And I'll tell you, Pete, Georgia got really lucky with some bounces of the ball in that first half because there was the one jet sweep that they ended up calling an incomplete pass. And then there was another long fumble that just bounced its way to a Georgia player somehow. Those were on back-to-back plays. They end up scoring a touchdown right after that, got a couple of penalty calls, got a couple of drops from Tennessee wide receivers deep down the field. It just felt like the ball was bouncing Georgia's way. And a lot of credit to them because just like the Texas game, they actually converted when the ball bounced their way. And so this is 2 of the biggest games Georgia has played, 2 of the 3, where they have capitalized on the opponent's mistakes. We've talked about how flawed a lot of these top-tier SEC teams are. maybe some other teams across the country. When we get into playoff play and there's going to be turnovers and stuff, Georgia has proven they're a team that can capitalize on those.
And Georgia's also the team, because of their recent success, that you're kind of just waiting for them to like be Georgia again. And they have that ability. Like this, I don't think Tennessee, let me say this. It was a huge win. And Georgia, do you think they're the best team in the SEC? Like, just if you had to take any team in the SEC on a neutral field right now, which team would you take to win or be the best? I don't know. However you want to term it.
I mean, on a neutral field, I would probably take Georgia right now.
Like over Texas, over A&M,
My issue is
over
that
Ole
Texas
Miss, who
game
they
was
just
so
lost
weird.
to.
Yeah, that Texas game was so weird. But dude, we'll talk about playoff predictions. I don't know. Like, I think all of these teams have proven that they're all about exactly at the same level. I think if Texas can avoid the mistakes, they're probably the best, because I think their defense has proven they're probably the best defense in the country. I thought Tennessee didn't look great defensively.
Because the old adage of like defense travels didn't show up as much here.
They could not rush the passer at all. One-on-one, their DBs were not up to the task. And Georgia has good receivers, but they're not the most elite receivers. I think it's either Georgia or Texas. Ole Miss, for me, they just have too many. And we'll talk about this later. They have too many games where they don't show up and look good. And
they do. But their last impression was
very good.
It was good.
Very good.
So maybe that'll continue. But they got a test this weekend too, and we'll talk about that.
It's like 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D. It's like all right there.
No, I hear you. I don't think that Tennessee is in the playoff if it ended right now. They still have an opportunity for a decent win against Vandy, but that's just my opinion. Other people might argue differently, that Tennessee would be in the playoff. The Texas win for Georgia is probably the best win anyone has in the country.
Yeah, I would say so, considering that it was on the road.
Yep.
I mean, you could argue like
Ohio State might have, like, the Penn State win, I think, was up
Penn
there.
Penn State win is good. Oregon's win versus Ohio State is very good.
Yeah.
And then Georgia over Bama, of course. Alabama over Georgia, excuse me.
I just think the style and where it was, and that weekend in Austin, to go down there and kind of like pull their pants down was the best win. But
no, I'd agree.
It's kind of why I give Georgia the edge in a lot of these, like, who do I think is better kind of things. But
I think they are most likely to be, if they don't win the SEC, I think they're most likely to be the 5 seed out of all the other SEC teams. I think they would bump them up into that spot after an SEC championship loss.
And right now they're on the outside. Yes, it does. And they're on the outside looking in at that championship game if things go to chalk. And so we'll just have to see there. But they've faced the toughest schedule in the country. So if they go 10-2, they should be in the playoff. Oregon was pushed to the brink against Wisconsin. They win, though, 16-13, thanks to a fourth quarter rally. This was a game Andy Bitter was at. He was going to visit his old alma mater, and I just thought that was kind of a cool game to be at. And gosh darn, if they didn't almost pull it off. They had a 7-point lead entering the fourth quarter, but the Ducks quickly tied it up in the fourth. Wisconsin had 4 possessions, though, after it was tied or when they were down, and they 3 and out, 4 and out, and a 2 and interception. So, like, over those 4 possessions they had after Oregon tied it up, they gained 0 yards on 4 possessions total. So they really just couldn't. Oregon, they stepped it up. Their defense turned it on, and they kicked that field goal, and they got the interception to seal it. Gabriel was not his normal, like, stellar self. No touchdowns, an interception, just a 64 QBR. But the defense, like I said, only 226 yards allowed for Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, they stifled Wisconsin's offense totally in this game. I mean, Wisconsin had 32% success rate, only less than 3.5 yards per play. Like, Oregon was all over them all day. Oregon's offense, though, there seems to be a strategy for defending Oregon's offense, and that is, like, get them into the red zone and hope Dylan Gabriel makes a mistake. Like, that's kind of the best scenario for you. And Wisconsin did that, and they won out. Oregon had the fake field goal that came up a yard short. interception in the red zone. Like there were opportunities for Oregon to kind of pull away in this game. And every time it was like another red zone mistake. And that's becoming a theme with Oregon. I think if there's one knock on this team, they've had a lot of issues in the red zone.
They have. Jordan James had 25 attempts for 121 and a touchdown. Stewart had 10 catches. I just wanted to point out a couple guys for Oregon because we don't talk a lot about Gabriel, but like they've got some players on this team, 10 receptions, and they won the game because of James, really. I mean, James was great in this game.
Ui Ungalale on defense. Holy crap.
He got the interception, right?
Yes, he is insane. And Oregon is doing this defensively. Jordan Birch didn't play in this game again. So their best defensive lineman is still a little banged up. So he should be back next week. I actually think they're off next week, but
that is right. He was out. Yeah,
he should be back. And I got to tell you, that defense is only going to get better. And
let me ask. I have a question for you before we close out Oregon. Do you ding them much for this close game, or is it just what happens on the road in November sometimes?
Night game in Madison, and you come out with a win. Sign me up.
Yeah. Not a place they normally ever play. It's not like they've been in the same conference forever.
They are so like, they're kind of built for Big Ten football.
I mean, listen, Lanning's done a great job. And before him, Cristobal built up the lines there. Like you're right. Like they're kind of Big Ten-ish. They're from a northern area. Like it kind of fits.
Yeah, it gets pretty cold in Oregon in November, I'm sure. So I think they'll be.
All right, let's talk about Kansas taking down BYU in the late night upset, 17-13. This was a disaster of a game for BYU in a couple different ways, but most notably, Jalen Daniels does the pooch punt, hits off the BYU helmet, goes to the 3-yard line, and then gets corralled by Kansas.
Okay. As a BYU -2.5 better, this was terrible. First off, that's a crazy play. I'm kind of shocked more teams don't try to do that because there's really no. Like, why don't you just try to?
It's hard to try to do it. You're just saying like pooch it with the quarterback.
Pooch it with the quarterback, but also just like kick it at someone and hope they don't get it because like your quarterback's not going to pin it inside the 5-yard line, right? So you might as well like go for it. I also thought, I saw this brought up on Twitter a few times, that could that be considered kick catch interference by the wide receiver?
Yeah,
I've heard conflicting things. I believe it wouldn't be because the player is not actively like underneath the ball. I think there's a rule that they have to be like actively tracking the ball to catch it.
Mm-hmm.
But
I don't know how it works when I guess it just works like a punt. It's just weird.
It's weird.
You don't see it a lot. You just don't see it a lot. And so BYU maybe a little bit caught off guard. And then, BYU had 3 possessions after KU took the lead and couldn't score. It's not like that was the last play of the game.
Mm-hmm.
They had a chance and they turned it over on downs with 11 seconds left, 46 seconds left at the 11, I should say. So they were so close.
At the end of the first half and the end of the second half, both times they had a 1st and goal, 0 points on those 2 drives. The interception at the end of the second half was atrocious by Retzlaff.
Back-breaking and a terrible interception. Yeah.
They could have just ran the ball in. I don't know why you're trying to throw a fade route to your tight end against an all-conference corner.
Kansas won the game with 242 total yards of offense. That is hard to do. They were out first down 23-13 and only a +1 in turnover margin. It was a critical one. Critical 2, but +1. It just BYU could not execute. They were 3 of 10 on 3rd down. They were 1 of 2 on 4th down. They had the 2 horrific turnovers. It was the anatomy of an upset. And the worst part of it was for them, it happened on their home turf.
Yeah. And I can't tell you the amount of times that BYU has played poorly at night in Provo. It does not happen often. And they just didn't look crisp like they had for this long stretch. The defense played great, I thought. But Retzlaff wasn't very good. I think they got a little bit um, I don't want to say conservative on offense, but they kind of just tried to run the same 3 or 4 plays over and over again. They ran a power option, like right off tackle. They ran that probably 15 times and it worked 5 or 6 times. That's a play that has worked for them this year. And in the second half, they just kept running that over and over again. And Kansas was defending it perfectly. And I'm like, all right, dude, they figured it out. Go to something else. And they just didn't adjust at all in this game. And credit to Kansas because they've lost a lot of close backbreaking games and they stuck with it in this one.
Yeah, and Jalen Daniels, I mean, I know the stats don't like jump out, but I thought like he has looked so much better just like the last few weeks since their bye week or whatever it was. And they were a live dog. As soon as this game kicked off, they were a live dog. I think they might have even scored the first points. So it was a fun game to watch. And even though it wasn't a lot of scoring, because I was plus 3.5 on Kansas. So we could have middled that thing. And I kind of expected, I didn't know if they'd win the game, but I expected them to keep it within 3. And you had it at -2 for BYU. So we could have middled it, but like there was just too many mistakes from BYU in this game and they couldn't overcome it. So now, Sam, they've got ASU coming up, but
in the desert,
even right now, getting in as an at-large is probably a bridge too far.
I will say if they win at Arizona State,
that's a good win.
They would have 2 really good road wins. They would have at SMU and at Arizona State. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
That's going to be more good wins than Indiana has. And so
yeah. I just think losing to Kansas on your home field.
That's a bad one.
It's not good. And Kansas isn't a bad team, but the record isn't good. Yeah. And so like it's just not going to look good. And if they lose to Colorado in the Big 12 championship game or anyone else, let me put it to you this way. If they don't lose to Colorado in the championship game and another team gets in there and beats them, like the Big 12 could get shut out of the playoff. Like that's very, very unlikely, but it's a possibility.
So if there's weird Big 12 scenarios, like Arizona State is not out of it. If Arizona State wins out and like a couple things bounce their way, it's Arizona State, Colorado potentially.
And I think an 11-2 Arizona State champion would get in. But because we think of like these Power 4, like, oh, the champ's automatically in. Not necessarily. Not if they're not the top 5 conference winners, right? Like you need to be. So Boise could be ahead of them, and potentially an American team. Yes, potentially an undefeated Army team.
If Army wins out and they get the win over Navy, a win over Tulane, and a win over Notre Dame, they're going to be it.
And they're probably going to be higher ranked than a 3-loss Big 12 team. Now, if Colorado wins out and they have 2 losses, they're going to be up there and they'll be in, and they'll be a top 4 seed for sure.
Oh, I can see it now. Undefeated Army gets left out of the playoff for Colorado.
Undefeated Army's not getting left out.
Are you sure about that?
I'm sure. Because they'd have the Notre Dame win. They, like you said, they'd have a Tulane win. They'd have enough. Undefeated with a Notre Dame win, you're not getting left out. Like it just won't happen. But Notre Dame's a tall task for them. Let's move to SMU, holding off BC 38-28. Grayson James started for BC in place of the departed Castellanos, something you and I haven't covered. But yeah, Castellanos decided after he got benched, well, I don't like being benched. I'm leaving the team. So that's a teammate for you right there.
Well, when we talked with AJ Black of Locked On BC previewing the Tech Boston College game, this was something we talked about, that like Bill O'Brien, his offense, and Thomas Castellanos, not a match made in heaven. And I think it was always going to happen. It's just once he got benched, I think he might have. Does it come off great on the surface? No. There is a part of me saying, hey, if this is the direction we're going to go, I know I'm going to get out of here anyways. I don't want to be a distraction anymore. Get me
that
out of
seems
here.
selfish, though. I just think like you finish out the season, out the season and then transfer. I don't know. You're a couple weeks away. Whatever. Yeah, so Grayson starts. I think. Pause real quick. What if Castellanos like goes to a service academy or something. Like he would kill it in an option offense.
Bryson Daly is a senior at Army.
Yeah, I know you need more qualifications than just being good at football to get into a service academy. So
He's at BC now. Those transcripts are going to transfer.
True. That's true. But you need like the Congress letter and like all this other stuff too.
We can make that happen.
Okay,
we can make that happen.
All right, SMU was up 20-14 at the half, but BC grabbed a 21-20 lead in the third before SMU ripped off a couple touchdowns. There was one nice long one in there. Ultimately, Mustangs go on to win by 10, but they probably gave up too many yards, more yards and points than they should have to BC to kind of feel good about themselves in this game. Jennings threw for 298 and 3 touchdowns. Brashard Smith, 120 on the ground, 6.7 yards per carry. He's been really good for SMU ever since, they lost Maryland, their playmaker, and he's been good. Some other guys have really stepped up. They keep their hope alive, but the Louisville loss is not good for the ACC.
I have SMU in my stock down category. That was not like, you need style points, and that was a game that you probably should have gotten style points and you didn't.
Should have, yeah.
And it's now there are a handful of games from SMU where they've won, they haven't looked very good. Like put this one in the Duke game, I think you can kind of put together.
And people are looking at that for sure.
People are going to see that, and that's what they're going to compare. And when they're comparing you to, a BYU team who's put up 40 plus in a bunch of games and stuff like that, when they compare you to Indiana, who's beaten teams by 1 billion, it's going to be a bullet point against SMU. So they've played a really soft schedule. They've played a very soft schedule.
I mean,
comparatively,
it was really good when SMU played them. Weren't they undefeated at that game?
Yes, and they've lost 3 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, I know Pitt's losing now, and Louisville had 3 really good losses. Like their losses that only combined for, like they were like a combined 24-2 or something crazy. I don't know, but my point is, both the Louisville win and the Pitt win look worse. So if SMU wants any kind of decent win on their resume, in addition to maybe those two, they kind of need Duke to beat Virginia Tech.
And they need to beat the ever-living crap out of UVA this weekend.
Yeah, they do.
And we'll see.
And that's in Charlottesville. I mean, that's
a tough game.
It's not. Listen, I know UVA beat Pitt to hand them a loss the week after they lost to SMU. I mean, UVA can nut up. Now, they didn't do it against Notre Dame. Might mention that later, but probably not. They got their asses kicked at Notre Dame, but so do a lot of teams. Anyway, 6-0 in the ACC for SMU. With all that being said, only UVA and then Cal in Dallas later on at the end of the year. So they got a good shot at being 8-0, man. Like a really, really good shot. Yep. And playing what presumably will be Miami, but Miami's got that trip to the Dome, so could be Clemson too.
Gosh,
Clemson's done. Like Clemson's in the clubhouse with ACC play.
I think the ACC is in a really weird position here going forward with this tournament format, because there are a lot of these upsets are going to keep teams out of the playoff more than they are going to propel teams into the playoff. And it's like a lot of these, Pitt is a sneaky tough place to play and they upset a team. UVA is good for an upset every year. NC State is good for a big upset every other year. Like the road trips to Cal and Stanford, Pete, I guess we can maybe talk about Louisville, Stanford, but we talked beginning of the season. They're going to get somebody that they shouldn't get on that road trip every year. And they got them. And Cal almost got Miami.
Cal almost got Miami, but Cal looked like crap against Syracuse this past weekend.
Cal's maybe not a very good team.
Yeah, they're 1-5 in the ACC, so I don't think they're very good.
Yeah,
they're Florida State's only win. I mean,
I don't think Cal's very good.
No, but to go back, let's talk about Louisville Stanford real quick, because that was such a good game. I didn't watch it live. I watched the condensed game, and it was a really fun game. And they have just such minimal fan support, but that's kind of how it's always been. And they've had good teams. Well, in this game, they came to play against Louisville, and Jeff Brom, for as good as a coach as he is, he had the stinker against BC. Was it last year? I think it was. And this was a real
last year.
Okay. This
Yeah.
was a real stinker, man. Like this was as bad a loss as you, and the way it ended, Sam. I don't know if you realize how it ended.
Oh, I watched how it ended.
I put out a tweet about it. Louisville, 4th and 10 from the 45-yard line. They throw to the end zone. They don't get it. There's only 5 seconds left in the game. Stanford runs one play. Louisville gets a 15-yard penalty. They get another 5-yard penalty before the next play can even take place. There's 1 second on the clock. Stanford kicks a field goal. So it was literally 20 yards of penalties in 5 seconds, and Stanford won the game on a field goal. Like just a disaster of an ending. It reminded me of our Liberty ending.
Yeah, it did. And I added like, this does seem to be what Louisville is going to be as a program under Jeff Brown. Like they're going to be chaotic in the transfer portal. Back-to-back years, just absolute chaos. Nobody knows who's on their roster going into the season. They play really good. They're going to get some good wins, but there are going to be weeks where they just don't show up. Defensively, they have not been good all year.
They did have 6 sacks in this game, but we know how bad the line and everything is at Stanford. So the one thing that killed, because like Stanford had no sacks and no TFL and still won the game. Like some of the stuff on these stat sheets this week just don't make any sense. But Louisville had 13 penalties. I don't know. I think your point about the transfer thing is valid. Like I didn't really think about that, of that leading to like some inconsistencies even later in the year. Well, if you look at Louisville for next year, they're the last place team in the recruiting rankings. They only have 12 recruits right now for 2025. And you know why, Sam? Because they're going to go all portal again.
They're going to go portal them. Yeah, they're going to go portal hunting. As we wrap this game up, note to self, like let's maybe make a reminder for like late July. Bet Stanford's over win total next year.
Yeah, I could see that. And if you could put us in that same category, if from an objective point of view, if you were watching Virginia Tech and they kind of keep Pry and maybe Drone sticks around and stuff, like I think we're not a similar Stanford, because like Stanford's been terrible most weeks, but like this was a sign that they are improving. We expected them to improve because of their coach. We both like him. And maybe this will kind of be a springboard for that. We, on the other hand, have lost so many close games. Maybe our win total would be similar, but I don't know why I'm bringing Tech into it. It's just, that's how my brain works, Sam. It's an unfortunate thing. Let's talk about South Carolina and Mizzou, because we mentioned the Louisville Stanford finish. This was a crazy final few minutes, and not as hilariously futile as the Louisville Stanford one. This was actually like fun offensive football. Sellers in the fourth quarter was dealing, and he just kept making play after play, the quarterback for South Carolina. Luther Burden had an incredible TD catch with 1:10 left, which I'm sure Missouri fans thought was enough to win the game. But South Carolina went right down the field. They had the shovel pass to Sanders. The subsequent run by Sanders was amazing. The crowd was so loud. I heard that play like registered on seismographs, similar to Enter Sandman, because it was so loud. Like on that rewatch, Sam, I don't know if you watched any of that. It was like hard to watch the game. It was so loud.
Yeah, it was bumping. Like credit to Shane Beamer and that team for getting a close win. They've had a lot of close losses, especially at home. So good for them to get that close win. It does feel like they have elevated themselves into that like tier 2 of the SEC. Like they've gone up a tier in this conference, and Sellers has gotten better as the season gone on. That defense is really good and has a lot of good young pieces. They're gonna have to pay a lot for those young pieces, but they do have a lot of good players. Credit to them. I mean, I don't think Missouri's pretty mediocre, I would say. Like they're not as good as their record is. So I don't want to overreact to them winning a close game.
But Brady Cook did play in the game.
Brady Cook did play in the game.
And like they're a good team. And I honestly think like Missouri has improved too. Like I know we're kind of stuck on like, oh, they got shut out by Alabama and like they're just kind of fake good. But like I think they're getting better.
Yeah, no, they are getting better. It's a very good win, but I don't want to overreact to it.
I know.
Like they're not a playoff team. South Carolina, like even if they win out, I don't.
Yeah, I kind of had that question for you maybe later. Well, we can discuss that more. But I do think like the Sellers, like finding this in Sellers, like 398 total yards and 5 touchdowns. I mean, this kid's He could be really freaking good.
If they get anything out of the passing game, they're a very good team. But it's just this kind of the only game all year that they've had where they're able to throw the football.
Let's save that 9-3 playoff stuff for just a little bit later.
All right.
Florida smacks LSU 27-16. We had Ryan Nanny on the show a week ago, and he's a Florida guy. We talked a little bit about their tough finish and how they gave Napier the vote of confidence, maybe because they knew this was coming up, and it could be hard to beat LSU and Ole Miss and Florida State or whatever. The first two more so than the last one. But I'll be damned if Lagway doesn't play and they look like a different team. And what's funny, Sam, is it's not as if his numbers are like amazing.
It's a mentality thing for the team. Like they play better with him. And also like shocking analysis from the Two Deep guys that the 5-star quarterback makes the team better. But it does seem like they have a little bit more mojo with him. And I think they believe that they're a good team. Like
more big playability for sure.
Yes. Like Florida gets so much crap over the last few years and so much was made about their schedule. I do think that they have had a good sense of self-awareness this season of, hey, we're a very young team. We're a very talented team, but we're very, very young. We have an impossible schedule. Our coach is recruiting his tail off. They got 2 really big flips today, a 5-star quarterback and a 4-star defensive end. Flipped them from Tennessee and Georgia, respectively, I believe. Like, I don't think those players are like downtrodden that they're going to be fighting for a bowl in the last week of the season. I think they've had pretty realistic expectations. And credit to them for that. That's really tough to get 18 to 22-year-old kids to do.
Yeah, no, the team has buy-in, the team is buying into Napier. There's no doubt. And that's one thing that we had heard. It's like the players seem to like Billy Napier. Maybe the boosters and the big time donors, not so much. But you know what's going to help the big time donors like him more is if he gets wins over LSU and Brian Kelly, because that was a nice win. And just to finish the thought, Nussmeier wasn't very good. He's kind of fallen off a cliff ever since that Ole Miss win. 5.5 yards per attempt. Negative 53 rush yards. You know why, Sam? Because there were 7 sacks and 11 TFL for the Florida defense. That was why they won this game. I mean, the defense was crazy good. And no, Nussmeier's not going to have a good game if you can't get any blocking and you take 7 sacks. Yeah. So the question now is, can Florida screw up Ole Miss's playoff hopes?
Noon game in the swamp? Maybe.
Feeling confident?
I would sprinkle it.
Yeah,
it might be on the ticket.
I was on Florida plus 5.5 in this one, and it worked out.
One of these SEC teams has to lose to clear up this play. Like one of them is going to lose.
As I said at the top of the show, College Football Monday is brought to you by Jack and Coke. 2 legends, 1 can, Jack and Coke. You can see the can right on your screen. Easy to find in the liquor store. The #1 cocktail in the world is available in that very can. It's true, Jack Daniel's Tennessee Whiskey and Coca-Cola or Coca-Cola Zero Sugar are available in a can at your local grocery and convenience stores. 2 legends, 1 can, Jack and Coke, ready to drink. And as always, please drink responsibly. I did want to mention, too, that we have a X account for College Football Monday now. It's just at CFB Monday. It's very easy to find. At CFB Monday on X, please give us a follow. It would be much appreciated. That's where, I'm going to start dumping a lot of the Saturday college football thoughts that are random. And they'll be coming from me or Sam. And it's just like, oh, these guys are clearly watching games. And it's like, man, Western Michigan needs to get it together. And other stupid crap like that. But no, I did a few on Saturday, just breaking it in, put out a few clips and things. So make sure to follow us on X at CFB Monday. We got to grow that account. It's now time for a very short version of VT Corner, Sam. I asked you to come up with just a minute or two on the VT Duke game. What do you got for me, buddy?
All right, I got the timer here on the top left of the screen. All right, so I think this game is pretty simple, right? If Virginia Tech can score 28 points, they're going to win the game because Duke has been consistently bad on offense, no matter their opponent, right? I'm a little bit worried about some of the RPO stuff Duke runs. That has given Tech's defense issues in the past few weeks, but overall, I think Tech's defense should be fine. It's all about execution. If the right Virginia Tech team shows up for at least 50 of the 60 minutes this time, like something, Tech should win this game. If they don't, it's going to be a dogfight because Duke loves playing gritty, gross football games. And Manny Diaz is going to have his guys ready to play on the defensive side of the ball. So will be a challenge for Tyler Bone and the Virginia Tech staff on the offensive side, getting ready for that kind of defense. And then the Hokies defense just needs to do what they do.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And we're going to talk more about that game on Wednesday on the Two Deep Show with Chris Givens, who grew up a big Duke fan and has been on the show in past years and helped us preview the Duke game. He's going to be back on Wednesday. So I look forward to introducing Chris to Sam and vice versa, and we'll have a good conversation on Wednesday. Other notable things that happened, Sam, I'll just get this out of the way. Penn State, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Bama, A&M, they all crushed. A couple of those teams didn't play anybody good, but that's fine. All those teams take care of their business. Colorado thumps Utah 49-24. And the big thing that came out of this game, I think, was the Travis Hunter highlights, lowlights and highlights, I guess.
Man, it is so weird because he does not. He's just like really good at both, but his stats are not that crazy, especially defensively. Like he got a tipped ball interception this week. He's an insane player, but like, I don't know.
Is he all conference at both positions?
All conference.
I know I'm putting you on the spot trying to pick out the Big 12 guys. But
I think at wide receiver he is
probably right.
Corner might on one be of the a little teams. Tough. Look, he's a freak, and it's like we haven't seen a guy like this
play this many snaps on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, but like, are we giving him the Heisman because he plays a lot of snaps?
It seems to be what people are doing. Like the polling right now, it's like he's the favorite, right? I mean,
he has 23 tackles. That's it.
Okay. I know, but some corners, if they're good shutdown, don't get a lot of tackles.
He has 3 interceptions.
It's pretty good.
I feel like I've seen 18 interception highlights of him, and he has 3. Like,
do you remember the year Hosley had like 9 interceptions or something?
That was pretty crazy. I mean, but we've done this in college football before. Like, what was
Charles
the Michigan? Yeah, didn't he have like terrible stats that year? He did nothing.
I mean, this is like 98, so I can't. But he also returned kicks. He had catches. Like there is a thing like. They're such a freak athlete. Like that's kind of what we're giving them this award for.
Yeah, no, it's true. Like, and if he wins it, it will be deserving because he is the best football player, right? But if it's
I think that's how some people view it.
Yeah,
right?
But if it's the best season, it's Ashton Jeanty, and it's not close.
Yeah, he isn't playing the best competition. It is surprising there's not a little bit more hype for Shedeur or Cam. I mean, Cam Ward's gotten a lot of hype, no doubt about it. I just feel like Shedeur's putting up really good numbers. He's the only reason they're this good. Like, I know Travis Hunter's really good, but like they'd probably be right about here with or without Travis Hunter.
Yeah, I would say they'd be close to it.
Maybe I'm off. I don't know.
I mean, Shedeur we knew he was going to put up these numbers type thing, and he's been good.
I mean, he puts up 340 and 3 touchdowns every week.
Yeah, I know it's true. It's true, but I don't know, man. But I think Colorado is definitely a team that they're a good football team. Mm-hmm. Like they're a very gimmicky organization right now, but they're a darn good football team right now.
I know. And
Utah's not good, but whatever.
Yeah. I mean, Utah they hadn't been, I don't think they'd been beaten. I don't know if they'd given up 20 points like many times. I don't know. And there was some kind of stat where like they hadn't lost a game by more than 10 all year or something like that. And they got smoked in this game.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, let's move on to Texas. They were not impressive, but they did beat Arkansas 20-10. It was 10-0 at the half. Arkansas made it a game with a touchdown and the run by Jackson, but the Texas defense was the story of this game. I think we might have alluded to that earlier. 6 sacks, 9 TFL for the Longhorns. Taylon Green did not have a good game, obviously, if they have all those sacks. Only 145 yards and 0 touchdowns for Green, who has been a good player, but not in this one. Ewers was not sharp, and that's something we've seen before. Just 5.5 yards per attempt for him, a 62 QBR. But SEC game, on the road, Arkansas, Texas have a history. I can't fault them too much. They did beat the absolute piss out of Florida just a week ago.
Yeah. Texas has a problem throwing the ball downfield. They only had one explosive play in this game. And I believe,
it was 30 yards.
Yeah, it had one like 30-yard pass. Like Ewers doesn't throw the ball downfield. It's like a check down every single time. And it kind of works because it's just, I think they know that this defense is so good and their playmakers are so good. It's like, if we avoid mistakes, like if we don't do what we did against Georgia, they can win a national title on that. Like they can win a national title playing like this.
That's what Michigan did last year.
Yes. However,
except for they don't have Blake Corum.
However, I think I don't know, man. It's weird. It's weird that Quinn Ewers is the talent that he is, and they just don't want to throw the ball downfield. Like,
I mean, the oblique could still be bugging him. Like, maybe he's not twisting the same way. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
that doesn't heal quickly.
It's at some point. I would not be surprised if we see Arch Manning. Because
that's such a tough position for him. Like if you're losing at A&M and you decide, let's try Arch in Kyle Field down by a touchdown. Like that's not a good situation for Arch. Now
he's played.
Tua did it in the national championship game and won. So like
he's played 2 whole games already this year.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's not his first action. I understand. It's just like, I don't know. I
agree. I agree with you.
That's not a position they want to be in. They want Quinn to play and play well, lean on his leadership and all the rest of that stuff. And their season's going to come down to the A&M game. I mean, if they win, they're probably in the playoff regardless. And if they lose, they may be out of the playoff altogether.
Yeah, that's very, very true. I mean, that game is for a playoff spot, I believe.
Yeah. All right, we talked about Louisville already. Let's talk about Clemson squeaking by Pitt 24-20. Klubnik had the 50-yard run for a touchdown to take the lead late. It's kind of a wacky play in and of itself. Pitt did have a final chance to score, but ended up with an interception. This isn't like a super low score, Sam, 24-20, but when you consider how many plays there were, this was a defensive battle. Each team ran over 80 plays in the game.
Yeah, and it feels like Pitt did what they wanted to do to make that a game. Like they made it ugly. They made plays on defense, but kind of from the start, it felt like Clemson was always like one step ahead. Yeah. Right. They got up to the touchdown lead. They were moving the ball well. Pitt didn't look good on offense for much of the game. Pitt shot themselves in the foot with penalties time and time again. Like they do not look well organized pre-snap at all.
Pitt had allowed 8 sacks as well. 8 sacks for Clemson. Pitt had 5 themselves, but like Clemson had 8. That's Yarnell threw for 350. And this is what I'm talking about with the plays. He threw it 54 times. Like 350 yards is not very efficient when you're throwing it 54 times. 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Klubnik was solid. 3 total touchdowns. Antonio Williams had an awesome day for Clemson receiving the ball. 13 receptions, 149, and both passes through the air. Both touchdowns through the air, I should say. So Clemson is in the race. If Miami falls, Clemson's going to be there in that ACC title game.
I don't think Clemson's offense can, against any sort of defense, they can't really muster much. However, neither SMU or Miami are stalwarts on defense.
No. So I think Clemson beating Miami.
You could get into a spot where Clemson has the upper hand matchup-wise in that game in Charlotte.
Yeah, either team. I mean, SMU hasn't been incredible. And like Clemson, they're not lighting up the scoreboard. They struggled to score against us. They struggled to score against Pitt. These are not the best defenses in the country here.
They've had negative EPA in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
Again, last 3 games. Excuse me, last 3 games.
Oh yeah, because they played Louisville before.
Negative expected points added for Clemson.
Just to finish out the other ACC action, UNC beats Wake. Hampton went for 244 on the ground in this one. He is now second nationally in rush yards per game. I think you know who's number 1.
UNC is probably going to win 8 games.
Dude. Crazy, man.
Yeah.
And they beat a good Minnesota team at the beginning of the year, too.
On the road. Yep.
And so, like, that's what's so, we did all of our ACC talk before the season, and we, like, left UNC way down, like, below SMU, below us, below GT, below Cal. Like, I don't know. We just didn't expect Mac Brown to have a very good year.
Mac Brown didn't expect it. He almost retired.
He did.
He almost just left.
He asked the players, I'll leave if you don't want me to be here, or whatever it was after that one game. And that might have been the turning point of the season.
What a weird, and they've obviously had some pretty, tragic things happen. But credit to North Carolina, because maybe this is what they need. Maybe they need the spotlight to be off of them. Wake Forest is terrible.
Should have won the Duke game too.
Yeah, they should have.
Really bad.
Wake is bad.
All right, Syracuse moves to 7-3, beating Cal on the road. Cal, as we said, they stink.
Yep.
Tulane shuts out Navy to move to 9-2. They're playing great, and I saw Josh Pate talking a little bit about how, are we sure Tulane's not the best G5? Something to that degree. And when you look at the losses that Tulane has, yes, they are 2 Power 4 teams with decent names, but neither of those teams are good.
Yeah.
Like,
that's
Oklahoma
my thing. Like,
it's not good. K-State is looking worse and worse.
Again, it's like you've been good except for the times where we needed to find out how good you were.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Tulane, pretty darn good team. Definitely a top 3, G5 team. Would not want to play them in a bowl game this year.
No, I don't think Army wants to play them. And that's what could very well happen in the ACC title.
Yeah. So, but you lost your 2 games. Like, you lost your 2 chances.
They're not going to the playoff. They're playing well, but that's that. Arizona State beats K-State in Manhattan to move to 8-2. Arizona State, your Sun Devils, Sam, 8-2. Scatterboot did play. Levitt was awesome. Over 300 total yards and 3 touchdowns for Levitt.
People called me crazy, Pete.
It's a good team.
Darn good team. They're well coached. They play super, super hard. Sam Levitt's been really good. They thought they got a guy in the transfer portal when they brought in Sam Levitt. They thought he was a guy who they could mold into being just kind
Where
of
did he come from?
Michigan State. He's a backup at Michigan State. And
Gotcha.
Kind of a gamer. Credit to them. They got a lot of weapons on the outside. Their defense is much improved. This is a big game against BYU.
I know this was another game you were probably enjoying. New Mexico upsetting Wazoo. 38-35. Bronco Mendenhall gets a huge win for that program.
I think it's their first ranked win in like 20 years.
Yeah.
The last time they beat a ranked team, they beat an Urban Meyer coached Utah team.
Oh my gosh.
It's been a long time. Devin Dampier is insane. I don't think I have seen a quarterback like he has Lamar Jackson-esque moves. He doesn't have the arm. He can't really throw.
Yeah.
But his ability to like stop and start in very close spaces is insane. Like, you can't tackle him. They ran a jet sweep every other play, and they were just faster than Washington State. So I think.
And Mateer went off too, didn't he?
Mateer had a great game. He's awesome. Washington State just doesn't have the dudes on defense. Like, they don't have a lot of speed. They lost guys in the transfer portal on defense, so they have a lot of backup linebackers they're working with. Like, it was a really good game plan from Bronco Mendenhall. Really good game plan. They got the stops when they needed to, and Wazoo just didn't have the speed on the outside.
All right, let's do our stock up and stock down teams. Stock up, Sam, you go first.
Stock up, number 1, the Georgia Bulldogs. You were left out. You are not left out anymore. that was the performance that a lot of people kind of expected from the team backed up against the wall, and they gave it up. So great job, Carson Beck, and great job to the Dogs. Number 2, Arizona State. They are in this Big 12 title race.
They are.
If they beat BYU, they're really in this Big 12 title race. And I got to tell you, if I'm Colorado, that's not the team I want to play. If I'm Colorado, I would much rather play BYU or Iowa
Absolutely.
State. Much rather, because you will not have the athlete advantage over Arizona State.
I'm curious, where is the Big 12 championship game this year? Do you know off the top of your head?
I think it's Vegas.
That's what I was thinking, but it could also be in Dallas. I'm just not sure. Do you have a third? Did you give me all 3?
Yeah, Colorado.
Okay.
They're just everyone
Did what they
expected them to win that game.
Actually change your opinion of them though, or do you just think they're getting even?
No, I think they are, by not losing that game and having BYU lose. Like it's
a stock up.
Feels like it's all coming together.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
All right, my stock up was Stanford. Huge win for them and that program. Kansas going into Provo and getting a win, no matter how gross it was. And then Florida, got to be stock up, man. That is a huge win for Billy Napier, and probably a little bit of weight off his shoulders in terms of, well, he's secured for next year. Like he could lose the next. Well, Florida State might still be a problem, but he's not going to lose to Florida State. So, stock down, Louisville.
Yeah,
I don't know what you're doing, man. Going to Stanford and losing that game. That's pathetic. Washington State stock down. You had a chance to maybe upset the apple cart. It was very, very slim, but you lost to New Mexico. So stock down.
Tough.
And then LSU. Woof. I know it's in the swamp, right? So it's not.
No.
Awful.
That was in Death Valley.
It was in Death Valley. It was in the swamp.
It was in the swamp. It was in the swamp. I'm dumb.
Yeah. No, you're good. Stock down for them. Just
bad still.
They're just not a very good team. They probably shouldn't have beaten Ole Miss, and they did. But
2 comments on LSU. One, stupid balloons coming up. They have yellow jerseys that they're bringing out for the Vanderbilt game. Interested to see how that looks on the field. Could look awesome, but we'll see. And did Billy Ray kill LSU football?
Yeah, I think he did. He did that podcast about LSU, or it was like a 30-minute show he did on YouTube. And it got more views and likes and comments than just about anything we've ever put out, thanks to LSU Nation. And they haven't been good since.
That's just hilarious.
All right, what are your other stock downs?
My stock down's BYU. I mean, that's night game in Provo, and you just 2 goal-to-go situations, and you can't just run the ball and get a touchdown, or at least get field goals off of them. That was a bad game for BYU. SMU. Buddy, you need style points here. You are putting yourself in a really tough position. I'm a little bit worried about SMU here. They're winning, but
we scored more points on BC than SMU did.
Yeah. And then third is Wazoo. I think it's just anytime you lose to New Mexico, it's a bad thing. And they did have a shot at 11-1. If Boise lost another game to kind of sneak their way in, maybe, I don't know. Their one loss was to Boise State by a pretty significant margin, but anytime you lose to New Mexico, you're going to make the stock down list.
Yep. Okay. College Football Monday is brought to you by Roback. Right after this ad read, we are going to get to our playoff picks. But you guys know Roback. They're the performance activewear designed for those who crave activity. They've got all the VT polos. I think we had a YouTube short of some good Roback content. I think David Wright was talking about Roback on the podcast he did with Pat and Billy. Yes, that's right. David Wright from the Mets, Billy's team, one of his many, was on the show. I'm just teasing you, Bill. It was a great interview. He's a big Hokies fan. That's why he came on. Billy actually saw him at the last game and was like, hey, if you ever want to do a show with us, we'd love to have your perspective as a Hokie fan. But he told some great MLB stories. Just a cool guy, really well-spoken, excellent interview. I would recommend you guys check that out. It was fun. But the point of that was he talked about Roback and how he needed some gear. Well, you guys can get some gear using code 2DeepVT. You'll get 20% off your order. You can get all the polos and stuff. There's tons of VT stuff up there now. They got the hoodies, the quarter zips, the different style of polos. They also have t-shirts, quarter zips, shorts, joggers, women's stuff, tennis skirts, hats. My wife loves her Rowback golf hat. It's very lightweight. It's an awesome hat. Use code 2DBT for 20% off your order. Rowback Crave Activity. All right, Sam, I'm going to put your playoff teams on the screen. Why don't you give the listeners who can't see it what you got?
Okay. So I'm the same as last week in the Big Ten. I got Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana. I said it last week. I'm saying it now. I think those four are pretty much locked. Like, I think those are locked and loaded. Those are your four Big Ten teams. Out of the ACC, I'm sticking with Miami. I think in a one-game scenario, I like Miami's talent and Cam Ward over anybody. Notre Dame, still in there. I think they're going to win out. Boise, still in there. I think they are going to still win out. Colorado, I now have out of the Big 12. I just think they're playing the best right now. They match up the best against BYU and or Iowa State. If Arizona State sneaks into that title game, it gets interesting. But for right now, Colorado speed, playing on turf, I like that matchup. The SEC, Texas, Bama, Georgia. I still have Tennessee in there. I still have Tennessee in there because I think Ole Miss is going to lose this week.
And that's what we have to do with this. We have to project based on our predictions. And that's why we both had Georgia in last week, because we thought they would beat Tennessee.
Tennessee has UTEP and Vanderbilt left. Ole Miss has at Florida in the Egg Bowl.
They both have tough road games. Yes.
I don't care how bad Mississippi State is. It's the Egg Bowl. Something weird is going to happen. I just think when they stack those two teams' resumes up at the end of the year, Tennessee's losses are at Arkansas, close, didn't look great, but then at Georgia. Ole Miss still has a home loss to Kentucky. That is a bad loss. And that LSU loss is not looking great either. Projecting forward to the end of the season, I think Tennessee's resume is going to trump Ole Miss, especially if Ole Miss loses this week. Now, if these two teams,
that's no questions asked for sure.
If these two teams, if Ole Miss and Tennessee were to play in Atlanta on Saturday, Ole Miss might wipe the floor with them.
Yeah. They looked real good against Georgia, but it's not how it works. And that's not how it works. Okay, let me put up mine because we are now, because you've switched to Colorado. I had Colorado last week. I still have Colorado. Hold on, there we go. So all of our picks are the same, except for I have Ole Miss instead of Tennessee, where Sam has them. So Notre Dame, Boise, Miami, the only team from the ACC. Colorado, only team from the Big 12. The four Big 10 teams, but yeah, I have Ole Miss in addition to Georgia, Alabama, and Texas. Now, my SEC title game pick right now is clearly Texas against Bama because I predict Texas to beat Texas A&M. But Elliott had Texas A&M in his playoff and no Texas, meaning he thinks that Texas A&M not only wins against Texas, but it's enough that Texas falls all the way out. Which I do probably, because their schedule of all of them is probably the weakest if we want to compare big, wins and whatnot.
I mean, it's kind of unfortunate too.
And a home loss by 2 touchdowns.
Like going into the season, Texas was maybe a little more fortunate, but they had a road trip to the Big House, a road trip to Kyle Field, home game against Georgia. You were like, oh, they do have a tough schedule.
Yeah, there just hasn't been a marquee hang your hat on it kind of win. Like they don't really have it.
They've just taken care of business though.
But if that's why they need to beat A&M. Like that's going to be their big win if they can get that one. And I still think, despite how they looked this past weekend, like A&M has real offensive problems and Texas has a great defense. And so I think that Texas can still go down there and win that game. So there's been a lot of talk. Let's do the South Carolina thing. If they win out, which obviously means South Carolina would have a quality win over Clemson, could they get in at 9-3? And I just don't see a scenario unless like 3 or 4 teams lose 2 more games. Like I'm not seeing it.
You would need absolute chaos. Like you would need Tennessee to drop a game, Ole Miss to drop a game. You'd probably need.
You're not going to put South Carolina in over any 2-loss SEC team.
Yeah, and you would need like Ohio State to lose out, to like lose to Indiana and Michigan.
Well, I guess the one question would be like, say Texas took a second loss at A&M.
Hmm.
Would you have South Carolina ahead of Texas, like a 9-3 South Carolina and a 10-2 Texas?
My one issue would be 10 is a bigger number than 9.
Yeah.
And it feels, when those two teams haven't played each other, it
Yeah.
feels a
It feels
little
wrong.
like, not saying this to you or anyone who thinks this, but like it feels a little disingenuous to the sport to be like, it doesn't really matter. Like we think this, like, I don't know.
That would be the only one because the other resumes I think are better.
Yeah, I think they are. You would like, they would need Ole Miss to lose. They would need chaos in the Big Ten. They would need Notre Dame to drop 2. Like they would need a lot of help, and even then,
But
I
a win
don't.
over Clemson, a win over A&M, and a win over Missouri, which Missouri is going to fall out. So then is that win as good? That LSU game is just looming large for them because they could have had that game and the
Coulda
refs kind of
had
screwed
that
them
game.
over in that game.
Yep. Well, they
But
also
South
gave up like
Carolina's
50 points. So
they did. South Carolina's a really good team though. Like that team is
Yeah.
pretty damn good. All right. Are you of the opinion, let's go to the Big Ten, that Indiana has to play OSU close to get into the playoff? And
I
then
think
I
they
also
can't
want you
lose.
to yeah, go ahead. Sorry. I interrupted you.
They
I have
what? So
another question.
the spread is like 12 right now.
The spread is 14.
It's gone up to 14.
I think I saw 14 earlier.
Ooh. So they got to keep it within. It has to be competitive. I think they have to keep it within they have to keep it within 3 scores.
Okay, so that's where I was going to go. Can they lose by 17 and still get into the playoff?
It depends on what kind of 17. If it's they're down 24, they score late at 17.
Yeah.
That might be tough. If it's
okay.
like a
I'm
10
seeing
point
it at
game,
I might have written it down wrong. It's 12 and a half.
it's 12 and a half.
Right now.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
So my thing is I think they have to keep it within 2 scores. So 14 or
Within
less.
2.
So
Who
if
do
they
they
lose
do they
by
end with
7,
like Purdue? I think
is it Purdue? I think it's Purdue.
Yeah. I think they usually end with Purdue.
I got it right here. Hold on. Yeah, it's Purdue. So yeah, if they lose by 14 or less, they finish 11-1. It's going to be really hard to keep them out.
Who is their best win at that point?
Well, I know, but it's 11 wins, and it's the only loss is to a top 3 team.
That's true.
If they lose, obviously, this is all projection.
I mean,
and maybe that conversation is really selling them short. The fact that we're like, if they lose by 17, like they might win the damn game.
They might. I mean,
and then that calls into question Ohio State.
I'm probably going to bet Indiana like plus 17 or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I probably would too.
Yeah.
Like that. So, and I think it might be a little silly to discuss like, okay, Ohio State has the Penn State win, but they lost to Oregon and maybe they lose to Indiana. Would they potentially be on the chopping block?
I got to tell you, I don't want to think it, but I could see they might already have Ohio State sharpened in there. And there might be
that's what I'm saying. Like they're just not going to leave Ohio State out
because
they didn't
do Ohio State's like Ohio State.
They didn't do it in 2014 when they probably should have. They put them in, and that brand is still the same, if not stronger. So they're going to have them in there.
And the Oregon loss was so close. That was
it was
such
so
a great
close
game.
On the road. Yeah,
they've been dominant in pretty much every other game. Like Penn State was close, but they were clearly the better team.
You could do the same argument on the other way, Sam. Like, if Ohio State loses by 14 to Indiana, are they out?
They would be pretty darn close.
They would be.
Yeah.
Okay. ACC and Big 12 looking like one bid leagues. Louisville loss really hurts them, as we said, because that's both Miami and SMU's best win, or was both of their best wins. In terms of the Big 12 getting a second team, we talked a little bit about BYU at 12-1, which I guess would be they would be the champs if they were 12-1. So 11-2, they'd have a case, but it wouldn't be a good case.
Mm-mm. No.
Okay.
It wouldn't
So
be a
both,
great one.
it's like there's some weird scenarios where maybe the ACC could get to. I don't think the Big 12 can get to. Like I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, I think if you are SMU, BYU, Colorado, Clemson, even, I think you are really rooting for some chaos upsets in the SEC. I think that's what you're rooting for. Like you're rooting for Kentucky this week against Texas. You're rooting for Florida against Ole Miss. I think you're rooting for who does Penn State play?
They usually play Michigan State at the end of the year, but I'm not sure if it's the same anymore.
Oh, the land grant trophy, of course.
Yeah,
Who could
right.
forget? No, they play Minnesota. Like Penn State travels to Minnesota.
Oh, that's Minnesota this weekend. Yeah. That's a tough game. That's a tough game. They got to be careful. They played Maryland last week of the season.
Nobody's talking about Penn State. Not a soul.
No. And this Minnesota game, when we get to our week 13 games in 1 minute, like that's on there. And Minnesota's 12.5-point dogs, and I'm all over that number.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Notre Dame is the last conversation I want to have with regard to the playoff. They go 11-1. And they get an Army win, a 9-0 Army team, they're in, right? Are we in agreement? Like no matter what, if they go 11-1, they're in. Okay. Yeah. They're Notre Dame. So that's that. If Notre Dame were to lose to Army or USC and they're 10-2, are they out for sure?
Out. Not a question. Out of there.
Really? Not a question.
Yeah. That NIU loss is so egregious.
I agree. It is Notre Dame. And I just feel like they want to get them in there.
I mean, no, I don't think so. I don't think Notre Dame's brand carries that much weight. Like it carries a lot, but it's not like people are just gonna tune in just for Notre Dame.
I don't know, man.
No one's like, gosh, I need to watch Riley Leonard and the Fighting Irish play today.
I agree. They're not like a flashy team this year. So maybe if they still had Brady Quinn or something like that, maybe it would be different. But 10-2. Notre Dame's probably not getting it.
I was really hoping you would pull out like, man, if they still had like Jimmy Clausen, they'd be in.
Hey, he was a big time college QB, not so good on the Panthers or after that. But yeah, I almost said Ian Book, but that was they did go 12-0 with Ian Book. But
yeah, I tell you what, this Fighting Irish defense with Deshaun Kaiser at quarterback would be.
Oh, the committee would be all over that. Got to get him in there. All right, let's go to the week 13 games. Unless you have any more commentary on playoffs.
Dude, we've put thought into this clearly, but I don't know, man. Like, I would say all 4 of those SEC teams are probably the same in terms of like how good they were.
Yeah.
I think it really is just Oregon and then like 10 of the same team.
It's going to be interesting, Sam, if Indiana does lose and they lose by 10, okay? And you've got 10-2 Tennessee sitting there, and you've got 11-1 Indiana for that last spot. That's a tough call, man. That's a really tough call. And I think I'd go with Indiana in terms of not only deserving, but like they might be better than them. Just like they really might be, but like you can make a good case for either team.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of talk about, like, I know the game day guys were like, oh, I guess they should just schedule the easiest possible teams. Like, okay, well, the SEC asked for this. Like, the SEC has been building this monster for decades, so I don't feel very bad about them for having to play a tough schedule. I think it's more the opposite. I think you don't want to schedule like Indiana has scheduled, because then you have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And that's really
not
only unrealistic.
Be perfect, but kick ass every week, which they have.
Yeah. Done. And so I think it's kind of the flip-flop of the ESPN narrative right now. Like, I think you want to play a schedule like Tennessee and Georgia and Texas and South Carolina, all those teams have played, because it gives you the most room for error and the most opportunities for big wins.
Yeah. All right. So week 13 games, we got Indiana at Ohio State. I just revised my line to -12.5 for Ohio State. I think I got to take Indiana. Like, I'm not sure what I'll do at the end of the week, but right now in my head, I like Indiana plus the points.
I do too. I also like the under in this game. Ohio State's been playing some low-scoring games this year. Even that game against Northwestern only got to 38 points. The Purdue game only got to 45. Penn State only got to 33. Nebraska only got to 38.
They just stopped
I like the
scoring
under.
this past weekend. They just stopped, and it might have been by design, but
but I'm a little bit worried that Indiana. There's a lot of film out on that offense right now, and we saw when they played Michigan, the combination of elite athlete plus a lot of film study did stifle that offense a bit.
Yep.
So,
Ole Miss at Florida. Florida plus 11 home dogs in the Swamp. I like Florida. I do. I mean, I know they're coming off a big win, so maybe there's a little bit of a letdown, but they are at home, and I feel like it can go the other way. Like you can use that win. That wasn't even. It's not like it came down to the wire and it was dramatic. Like they had it, and so they might just be feeling confident and ready to win another one.
Give me the Swamp Puppies.
All right,
money line.
Oh,
money line.
What do you got? +2.
Plus 290.
Oh
God, it's not even. It's change I find under the couch to win a unit on that one.
Plus 290. Hell yeah. SMU at UVA. A little bit of a dangerous spot for the Mustangs. Not playing super clean football every week. But UVA, that opening kick for UVA against Notre Dame was like, damn, this team might not be good at all.
Yeah, that Musket played for UVA. I feel like no one's talking about that.
He played at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Calandria played, right?
I mean, kind of. He was 8 of 21 for 69 yards and 3 interceptions.
Ouchie.
Yeah, that's not nice.
I would love to play Musket, by the way, instead of Calandria. I know Calandria.
I don't know. It's really fun watching Calandria get sacked.
It is fun, but it might be more fun to hit a sitting duck in the pocket.
I mean, I think they might go with Musket, and they just. I don't know if they can keep up. Like Boston College, Bill O'Brien's offense has some stuff to it, and some good wrinkles schematically. I don't know if UVA has that.
Yeah. And SMU has been doing this thing where like they play not so good, then they play really good. Then they play not so good, then they play really good. So this could be a really good weekend. And I'll just take SMU.
I would stay, if you're betting, I would stay away from this game.
Yeah. If I'm picking it, I'm picking SMU though. Penn State at Minnesota. We both said we liked Minnesota in this one. At least I do.
If I have to choose one, I am going to pick Minnesota.
Okay.
However, we do see this almost every year where Minnesota plays really well in close games against the middle and lower Big Ten, and then gets their butt whooped against the big guys. So we'll see.
That's a tough spot though for Penn State to go up there.
Tough spot. It's going to be cold.
Hell
they have a good home crowd. Yeah.
BYU at Arizona State. This is one of the better games of the weekend. Arizona State 3-point favorites in Tempe.
This is a weird one. I think I'm gonna
straightforward. I'm taking ASU.
You're taking ASU?
They're a better football team.
I'll ride with you. I'll go ASU. I also let me get, what is the over under for this game? I had it in my notes, but I can't.
I do not have it pulled up.
I got it right here. The over under is like 48.5. I would take the over in this one.
Yeah.
ASU plays high scoring games. I'd take the over. Retzloff's not going to have a game that bad again. So rebound game for BYU offense.
No, that should be an entertaining game. Pitt at Louisville. Louisville 8.5-point favorites at home. I think Louisville bounces back in a big way.
Yep, usually a very good home field team.
And this is revenge. Remember when Pitt, who was having a terrible season, beat them on the CW?
Yeah, and I think Pitt might be exactly who we thought they were and just have won a bunch of close games at the beginning of the season. Yeah,
agreed. Army at Notre Dame, another big one. Notre Dame 14-point favorites. I think that line makes sense. One of these teams is going to keep it close with Notre Dame. Like they've been kicking ass a lot against some bad teams, and I know Army has not played. Their schedule is so weak. It's so weak.
Do you know the most points Notre Dame's given up a game this year? They gave up 24 to Louisville.
Okay.
Everyone else has been 14 or less points.
Yikes. Well, this is, I mean, it's a different beast though. I mean, this is like this is an offense that can cause some teams a lot of problems. Now, Army Notre Dame plays option teams every year, and they already played Navy, but Navy's not running the true option.
It's a little bit different, but I will tell you, so since Freeman's been the coach there and they've had this defensive staff, 2021, they beat Navy 34-6. 2022 was that really close game. They beat them 35-32. 2023, they beat Navy 42-3 in Ireland. And this year they beat them 51-14. They play very well against the option. That kind of scares me for Army. But Army's defense is one of the better defenses Notre Dame will have played this year. I think it's like,
do you think it's a better defense than NIU? I mean, if they can lose to NIU, I'm taking Army with the points. I just feel like this is a really big
opposite.
spot.
If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. If you can lose the NIU at home, who knows?
I'm looking at your shirt. How can I not pick Army?
I'm going to be rooting for Army, but I'm just telling you what.
You're not putting your head above your wallet
on this show.
Yeah,
I'm not betting this game. I'm just going to let the cards fall where they may.
All right, and last one we'll pick so we can get the hell out of here. Bama at Oklahoma. Oklahoma 14-point underdogs in Norman. I only put this on here because this was supposed to be like a preseason, really awesome game. Bama goes to Norman, and it's hard for me to even think about taking Oklahoma.
And I thought Oklahoma was a team that could surprise some people. Coming out of summer camp, they were kind of cocky about hey, we got a really good team. Our defense is looking good. Arnold's looking good. And that offensive coordinator screwed it up for them. They've been confused the whole season. I wouldn't be super confident if I was Alabama. That's a tough place to play.
It's going to be loud Oklahoma though and beat them up. Who they just play?
Let me look real.
Maybe it wasn't at Oklahoma, but it was Mizzou. They just played Mizzou and they lost to Drew Pine
in a crazy ending to the game though.
Fine, but
yeah. So I'm just saying I wouldn't be super duper confident if I was Alabama because you're playing good players. You're on the road, long road trip. Things happen. This is a weird sport.
Things can happen. Norman's a hard place to play. And that's why I have ridden with Oklahoma on some of my home game picks when they're at home. But I'm not doing it here. If I have to pick this game, which I may in my pick 'em, I'm going to take Bama.
Yep, that's fair.
All right, Sam, that's going to do it. Like I said earlier in the show, make sure you guys are following at CFB Monday, at 2DeepVT. And you can see our two handles on the screen if you want to follow either of us individually. It's at PeteBVT and at Sam of Saturday, all spelled out there. And make sure you're subscribed to the Sons of Saturday YouTube channel, Sons of Saturday podcast feed, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, as well as the 2 Deep podcast feed where you'll find College Football Monday, find 2 Deep Hokies Under the Influence, and you will find Memory Lane on occasion. I'm looking forward to Wednesday night, Sam. And until next time, go Hokies.
Go Hokies.